My mom was 40 when she finally popped out my brother Mason. Because she was obsessed with some pseudoscience bullshit about caloric restriction leading to immortality. She only ate one meal a day during her pregnancy. The result, she was malnourished as hell. Mason was premature. He weighed 4 pounds, soaking wet when he slid out. The doctors pleaded with her to put Mason in the NICU. The nurses handle him and pump him full of creamy formula. Mom wasn't having it. She snapped, "My son needs to be like me. He needs to maintain a sense of hunger. That's the verifiable secret to living forever." She didn't give a damn what the medical professional said. She insisted on breastfeeding him herself, which was a joke since she was starving herself. Terrified the kid was going to croak, doctor tracked down my dad. Dad spent a whole day screaming at mom, until Mason was finally shoved into an incubator. Watching my brother's tiny, stick-like limbs twitching under that blue UV light, I felt absolutely nothing. 2 weeks later, Mason was out. Mom snatched him from the nurse like she was reclaiming a stolen purse, and discharged him immediately. Back home, Mom started her starvation therapy. She fed Mason once a day. That's it. Mason couldn't handle it. The kid screamed his lungs out from hunger, sometimes crying until he literally passed out from exhaustion. Dad had already bolted back to the oil rigs in North Dakota. He wouldn't be back for 6 months. I knew Mom was batshit crazy, so we hired a night nurse to watch the kid. But the second Dad's truck turned the corner, Mom fired the nurse. Some nights, I'd wake up to Mason wailing, and Mom whispering her insane mantra in the dark. "Mason, we don't eat. That's how we make it to 100 years old." Mason was a few months old. He didn't understand longevity. He just knew his stomach was eating itself. Listening to his cries, I put in my earplugs, kept my face stone cold, and went back to sleep. Because I've done this already. I was reincarnated. In my last life, Mom starved him just like this. Mason used to come to me with tears in his eyes, begging, "Harper, please, my tummy hurts." I was weak. My heart broke for him. I used to sneak him snacks constantly. Later, when he got sick, he blamed me. He said I ruined his longevity. When my asthma flared up, he hid my inhaler and watched me suffocate. This time, I'm not messing with his destiny. Thanks to Mom's starvation regime, by the time Mason was 1, he weighed 16 pounds. Looks like a shriveled alien compared to the other toddlers. The suburban moms in our gated community would gather at the park to humble brag about their kids. My mom would puff out her chest and say, "Mason is such an angel. He never cries, never fusses. He just eats his one meal and sleeps." The other moms looked at her with envy, praising her for birthing such a chill baby. Only I knew the truth. Mason didn't cry, because he learned early on that screaming didn't produce milk. So he saved his energy. He slept all day because his body was literally shutting down. To conserve calories. Dad tried to argue with Mom at first during his brief visits, but seeing that the kid wasn't dead yet, he stopped caring. I was attending college locally. Every time I came home, Mom would nag me to join her starvation cult. Sick of her voice, I moved into the dorms and stayed there. I worked double shifts during breaks just to avoid that house. 3 years later, it was time for Mason to start preschool. He was stunted, short, slow, lethargic. The school realized he couldn't keep up and suggested putting him in the toddler room. He fit right in with the 2-year-olds. You couldn't even tell the difference. Mom told the teacher strictly Mason only requires 1 meal a day. The teacher thought she was joking, or that Mason just had a small appetite. Being a decent human being, the teacher fed all the kids breakfast and lunch. He was shocked to see Mason attack the food like a feral animal, licking the plate clean every time. First week of school, the teacher posted a video in the parent group chat of Mason eating, captioning it, "Mason is such a good eater." Mom saw that notification and went nuclear. She didn't even change out of her house slippers. She drove straight to the principal's office. When the teacher tried to explain basic biology, Mom started shrieking about how they were poisoning him with calories. She demanded the teacher be fired. The principal, realizing Mom was unhinged, refused to fire the teacher and instead suggested Mason find another school. Mom dragged Mason out of there, cursing them all to hell. By the time Mason hit elementary school, he realized he was a freak. Other kids had shiny, thick hair. Mason's hair was sparse and looked like dead straw. The bullies had a field day. They called him skeleton and strawhead. Mason would cry and try to fight them, but he had zero muscle mass. Couldn't run. He'd take 3 steps and gasp for air. One day he tripped on flat ground, scraped his arm. It wouldn't stop bleeding. The teacher rushed him to the ER. The doctor said Mason's platelet count was dangerously low, and his blood wouldn't clot. Malnutrition, plain and simple. Mom refused to admit it had anything to do with her starvation gospel. She screamed at the doctor right there in the hospital room. "You hacks just want to squeeze money out of my insurance. You're making up diseases." I knew hospitals were scams. He turned to me. "Harper, you're a college student. Tell him I'm right." I nodded, bored. "Yeah, Mom. Sure, whatever you say." Feeling validated, she went back to verbally abusing the medical staff. Later at home, I was sitting at the table, eating a greasy cruller and drinking a latte, doom scrolling on my phone. Mason watched the donut in my hand, his stomach making noises like a clogged drain. He swallowed hard, checking to make sure Mom was in the other room. He shuffled over to me and whispered, "Harper, I'm so hungry. Can I just have one bite?" I pretended I was deaf. I took a huge bite of the cruller, letting the sugar glaze flake off. Mason's stomach roared. He couldn't take it. He reached out and grabbed a donut strip. Just as he was shoving it into his mouth, Mom walked in. She slapped the food out of his hand, yanked him behind her, and pointed a bony finger at me. "Damn it, Harper. If you want to die young, fine. But don't you dare ruin Mason's karma." I didn't back down. "Your son grabbed it with his own hand. Watch your kid better if you don't want him scavenging for scraps." Mason started crying, reaching for the donut on the floor. "Mom, it's not fair. Why does Harper get to eat 3 times a day, and I can't?" Mom hugged him, cooing. "Harper is going to get married and leave. She's not truly family. Let her eat herself to an early grave. You are different. You are the only heir to this family. My precious boy, you need to live. To be 100. Mom had found this hunger longevity theory on some obscure conspiracy forum. She treated it like the Bible. I picked up the dirty donut from the floor and tossed it in the trash. I looked at Mason. "Hear that? Mom says no. Be a good boy and starve or you'll ruin your karma. Don't want to die young, do we?" I grabbed my suitcase and walked out the door. In my last life, I stayed local after graduation to feed Mason. This time, I studied my ass off, got my teaching credentials, and moved to a mid-sized city 3 hours away to teach middle school. To keep Mason pure, Mom cut off his allowance, so he couldn't buy contraband snacks at school. Mason called me constantly, begging for 10 or 20 bucks via Venmo. I knew he was starving, but I used Mom's logic against him. "Harper, please. I'm dying," he whined into the phone. "Just send me cash. I'll eat secretly." "Mom won't know," I smirked. "Can't do it, kid. It'll ruin your karma." Mason got nasty. "Harper, you bitch. Send me the money, or I'll tell Mom you made me eat," threatening me. Cute. I hung up and immediately forwarded the recording to Mom. Caption: "Your longevity boy is trying to buy snacks at school. Guess he wants to die early." Mom called me 5 minutes later, breathless with excitement. "Harper, did you hear? He's trying to break his fast." I told him that's how you die young. He's so weak-willed. I'm cutting off his phone too. No more temptations. "Good," I said. "Keep him pure." She hung up without saying goodbye. I deleted the recording and blocked Mason's number. I didn't hear from them for 2 years. Then the call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Dad." He never called me. I picked up half asleep. "Harper, your mom's in the hospital." I sat up. "What happened?" "She collapsed at the grocery store. They're saying it's her heart." I'm on my way back. You need to come too. I stared at the ceiling. What about Mason? Dad was quiet for a long time. Mason's in the ICU.
What?
He's been in there for 3 weeks. Your mom didn't want to tell you. She said you'd try to feed him. I threw clothes into a bag and drove through the night. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and death. Dad was sitting in the waiting room, looking 10 years older.
He stood up when he saw me.
Your mom's in room 302. Mason's in the ICU. I went to Mom's room first. She was hooked up to machines, her skin gray and translucent. Her eyes fluttered open when I walked in. Harper, she rasped. You came. I pulled a chair to her bedside. What happened? Heart failure, she whispered. The doctors say I'm malnourished. Can you believe that?
Me?
Malnourished? I've been perfect. I've been fasting for 20 years.
I should be immortal by now.
She grabbed my hand with bony fingers. You have to finish it, Harper. You have to make sure Mason keeps the fast. He's in the ICU because he cheated. I found wrappers in his room. Candy bars.
Chips.
He poisoned himself. I looked at her.
He's dying, Mom.
He's not cheating. He's starving to death. She yanked her hand back. Don't say that. He's just weak. Like you. You never understood the gift I gave you. The gift of hunger. The gift of eternal life. I stood up. Where's Mason? She pointed a trembling finger at the door. Down the hall.
Turn right.
But Harper, don't you dare feed him. I walked out and didn't look back. The ICU was quiet except for the beeping of monitors. I found Mason in the last bed. He was so small. So much smaller than I remembered. His skin was paper-thin, stretched over bones. His eyes were sunken, his hair patchy and brittle. He was hooked up to so many machines I could barely see him. A nurse was adjusting his fore. I'm his sister, I said. She turned to me, her face grim. He's in critical condition. Severe malnutrition. Organ failure. We've been trying to stabilize him for weeks. His mother keeps refusing the feeding tube. She says it'll ruin his karma. I stepped closer to the bed. Mason's eyes opened. Harper? His voice was barely a whisper. I'm here. He tried to reach for me, but couldn't lift his arm. I'm so hungry, Harper. I'm so hungry. I looked at the machines. The 4 dripping clear fluid into his vein. The monitor showing his weak heartbeat. I thought about my last life. How I'd fed him. How I'd tried to save him. How he'd blamed me for ruining his longevity. How he'd watched me suffocate. I thought about this life. How I'd let him starve. How I'd forwarded his begging to Mom. How I'd blocked his calls. I reached into my bag and pulled out a granola bar. I'd bought it at a gas station on the drive here. I unwrapped it slowly. The smell of oats and honey filled the room. Mason's eyes widened. Harper, no. Mom will kill you. I held the bar to his lips. Eat it, I said. He opened his mouth. He took a bite. Then another. He was crying as he chewed. I can't believe you're doing this, he choked out. I thought you didn't care. I sat in the chair and watched him finish the bar. I don't, I said. But I want to see how this ends. He smiled, a weak ghost of a smile. Thanks, Harper. The door burst open. Mom was standing there, clutching her 4-pole like a weapon. Her face was twisted with rage. You traitor. She stumbled toward me, her heart monitor beeping faster. You ruined him. You ruined everything. Dad ran in behind her, trying to grab her arm. Honey, calm down, your heart. She poisoned him, Mom screamed. She's killing my baby. She pointed a shaking finger at Mason. Look at him. He's going to die now. He'll never make it to 100. Mason looked at her. Mom, he said. I'm already dying. She froze.
What?
He looked at me, then back at her. I've been dying for years. I've never felt full. I've never felt warm. I've never felt alive. He took a breath, his chest rattling. Harper fed me. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm disappearing. Mom's face crumbled. No, she whispered. No, you don't understand. This is the secret. This is how we live forever. Mason shook his head. I don't want to live forever, if this is what forever feels like. He looked at me again. Harper, can you get me another one? I reached into my bag. I had 3 more granola bars. I gave him all of them. He ate them like he'd never eaten before, like he might never eat again. Mom collapsed. Her heart monitor went wild. Doctors and nurses rushed in. Dad was shouting. Mason kept eating. I watched it all. I watched the chaos. I watched the desperation. I watched the madness of a woman who'd starved herself and her son for a lie. Mom died 3 hours later. Her heart just gave up. The doctor said she'd been running on fumes for years. Her body had finally shut down. Mason survived.
Barely.
They put him on a feeding tube. He gained 10 pounds in the first week. His hair started growing back. His color returned. He was still small, still weak, but he was alive. I stayed for the funeral. It was just me, Dad, and Mason. Mom didn't have any friends left. She'd alienated everyone with her fasting lectures. The priest said some words about her being a devoted mother. Mason didn't cry. Neither did I.
Dad did.
He cried for the woman he'd married, the one who'd been normal before she found that forum, the one who'd laughed and eaten pizza and lived like a human being. After the service, we went back to the house. It was empty and cold. The fridge was bare. The pantry had nothing but vitamins and supplements. Mason looked around. "I'm hungry," he said. Dad nodded. "Let's go get some food." We went to a diner. Mason ordered a burger and fries. He ate it all. Then he ordered another one. He ate that too. He smiled when he was done. "I think I'm going to make it," he said. I looked at him. "To 100? He laughed.
No.
"Just to tomorrow." I smiled back. "That's a good goal." I went back to my city the next day. Mason stayed with Dad. They started going to therapy. Mason started eating regular meals. He started gaining weight. He started living. I called him once a week. We talked about normal things.
School. Friends.
Movies. Not about fasting. Not about longevity. Not about karma. 2 years later, Mason graduated high school. He was still small. Still a little frail. But he was healthy. He got accepted to a college in my city.
He moved in with me.
We cooked dinner together every night. He's still learning what hunger feels like. The good kind. The kind that goes away when you eat.
Sometimes he asks about Mom.
I tell him the truth. She was sick. She believed something that wasn't true. She loved you in her own way.
He nods. I know.
He pauses. "Harper?
Yeah.
Thanks for the granola bar." I smile.
Anytime.
Last night, we were eating pizza. Mason took a bite and closed his eyes.
This is good, he said.
"Yeah," I said.
It is.
He opened his eyes and looked at me. "You know what the best part is?
What?
I can have another slice. And another. And another. Until I'm full." I handed him the pizza box. "Eat as much as you want," I said. "That's how people are supposed to live." He smiled and took another slice. And for the first time in either of my lives, I felt like we were going to be okay.